talk for just a second? You know, I made the motion for such a committee because there seemed to be some little bit of tension between the lawyer's position and being administrative and serving the county commission, and the county attorney has to really serve everyone and is elected by the county commission. So there are a lot of intricacies here. We have two people that the mayor appointed and two people that I appointed. I don't know about the mayor's two people. My two are just excellent. But no, just kidding. I know both these guys and they're great. So I'm sure it's going to be a really harmonious and a very good meeting of these people. Let me first say that I would expect this committee, my motion more or less was that this committee would review applications, refine that, bring back to us one name, two names, three names, whatever the committee decides to bring back to the county commission for consideration. Right now, if we bring more than two names, we won't have anybody else.
One of them would be the accountant.
Yeah. The average is not very good right now, but I'm sure we'll get more applicants when the word gets out. But you will, I would like for you to formulate some guidelines, first of all, on what you would like to do, and knowing that we are without an attorney. Ben is filling in admirably, but I'm sure that he would like some help. And so we're in a time crunch and a time frame, and we don't want to make a rushed, hurried, bad decision, but we need to move along with it. So I think the best thing that we could do now, knowing the guidelines and things that I've set out, anything else anyone wants to know before we move any further? Okay. I think now it would be appropriate for the committee to elect a chairman.
We're gonna do the invocation and approve the agenda.
Oh, all right. We'll do an invocation, certainly. Would you bow your heads? Father, we thank you for another beautiful fall day today, and for all of the blessings that you have provided to us. We pray now for the business of this committee and pray that you will provide to us the wisdom and the understanding to make the decisions that will glorify your name. Pray in thy name. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Approval of the agenda was the next.
Approval of agenda.
Do you have another copy of the agenda?
I have something to say on the approval of the agenda.
Okay.
We have 3 items: A, vote on chairman, vice chairman; B, discussion of selection process; and C, discuss received applications. I move that we strike discuss received applications and wait till the next time we meet, maybe discuss.
I think that's very
give us some time
appropriate.
and do that a little bit more. We're more established.
So, with agreement with everyone here, we will just strike that before we approve the agenda. Any objection? All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Opposed, like sign. So we now have an agenda, and we've prayed for wisdom. So we're ready to go to work. Let's elect a chairman now.
I'd like to nominate Jeremy as chairman.
Okay.
Because he's been on the commission and he's been in the shoes and he's worked with the county attorney. And I feel like that makes him qualified to, or has more, his rubber's met the road a few more times in that position.
All right. Any other nominations? All right. All those in favor of Commissioner Mansfield signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Okay. Mr. Mansfield.
All right. Now we need to nominate a vice chairman. Do you have any nominations from the floor? I'll nominate Commissioner Harrison.
I'll second that.
I'll third that.
All right, well.
I think that's
That's about the majority.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, none opposed. All right, get that out of the way. So in discussion of selection process, I don't anticipate this being here very long. Just basically, as Chairman Hyde said, just establish what we're doing, kind of a survey, what this is all about, responsibilities, basic ground rules. But I think discussion, like what do we want to see out of the interview process? So as whether we have 2 people or 20 people, what does that look like for us as an ad hoc committee? And then obviously, anybody's free to, you get I've requested at the law director's office, any submissions come in, that we get those emailed. So somebody can go ahead and start researching, so we're not delaying time, so you can have plenty of lead time to have that come through. Give them a call, email them, there's nothing that stops you from doing that. But I think, I would encourage it, I've talked to one, but I've not talked to the recent second submission. What does that look like for us as a ad hoc to report back to legislative, because that's what we're going to do, and we don't have any authority other than just giving our recommendation, as you guys know. Maybe establish a process of what that looks like as an interview process. I think one thing would be good after moving a little further is providing probably a list of pros and cons to the legislative committee of each interviewee or person we've talked to of maybe what our recommendations are, why we think the strengths and weaknesses kind of. I think that'd be good to know and have all the pluses and minuses to make a more of an objective decision and as a committee as we discuss people. But definitely open the floor to ideas on what that interview process looks like once we have them and once we close the public notice for this position. And once that's shut down, what do we want to do, as far as that process? And so does it look like we have somebody come in that we maybe do a Zoom call, we do a phone call, a conference call? Do we have them come in here and meet with us, stack them up 30 minutes apart? Or a 15-minute break. So I think there's a lot of ways we could do this. So Commissioner Harrison.
Could I ask a question? What was the precedent when the commission elected Leah?
So at that point, Bill Wright was the previous law director, and Bill and Leah both worked in private practice together as Sumner County's attorneys in private practice. They came in-house together with Bill Wright being the law director and Leah being the staff attorney. And when Bill Wright went back to private practice, they didn't do a search. They just moved Leah into the position.
So we're basically plowing new ground.
Correct.
Okay. So that brings me to my next question, would be why are we doing that if we haven't done that previously?
Well,
And I would defer,
I think every commission can have their own choice of how they want to select anyone, and Ben, for instance, is perfectly welcome to put in his resume, or anyone as far as that's concerned. But I think I just felt like that we needed to have an open process to interview people and to make a selection. It's a very important decision.
No question.
And, we depend so much on the advice that is given to keep us out of deep water.
Right.
The person we choose.
So, having read the Private Act, and I certainly don't want to dominate the discussion, I just have some questions that I had written down. Having read the Private Act, I stipulate that the county commission elects the law director.
Yes.
Is there no role at all for the county mayor to submit a nominee?
It's not mentioned, but I don't think this committee would be, and here I'm speaking now as chairman and not a member of this committee, but I don't think that this committee would mind anyone submitting a qualified person to be considered. I think, or at this point with 2, I think we'd like for everyone to submit about 3 or 4.
Sure.
And kind of the idea behind this committee was, because I did submit a memo that general law of the TCA overrid part of our private act, and there was another memo from another attorney that disagreed. And part of it, the idea of this committee was, no matter how you read it, the commission and the mayor could work together to come up with a solution together. And that idea of compromise, that was what was discussed at the meeting when this was put together. Am I wrong in that, Mr. Hyde?
No, I think you're right, and I remember back when I first came to this county, all the way back to, the part-time attorneys we had, Preacher Hunter, who was Judge Hunter's father, who was, the, lawyer for the county commission. You know, even when he was the part-time, advisor, legal advisor, he, pretty much at that time was chosen, well, he was chosen and worked pretty directly under the county commission. However, we've moved along, things have gotten bigger, not necessarily all the time better, but in any event, we have a form of government now where, you know, we have the mayor needing to use the attorney a lot. The county commission definitely has to use the attorney a great deal. I also did, like you, I reviewed that act just the other day. I'm putting together a book on all committees and boards in the county and trying to pull together private acts and county commission rules and everything on all boards and committees, and reviewed that. But it does not mention anyone but county commission in that act as far as choosing the attorney. You're exactly right on that.
And of course, I think, and I'm in agreement with you, Chairman, that this has become a political football. I think unnecessarily. I think that with the county mayor being a constitutional officer and would potentially, and more than likely probably be named in any lawsuit that comes across to the county, certainly he ought to have some say, he or she, whoever it is, whether it's John, whether it's 4 years from now, 8 years from now, they ought to have some say in who's representing them, I think. I think the commission and the mayor's office ought to be working together in that. The way I view it is sort of like putting forth a nominee for a Supreme Court appointment. You know, you've got the president nominates, the Senate confirms or votes down.
I agree with you,
Yeah,
Mark, and I think that's why we're here as we are now, 2 members from each group to make a decision, and looking at the people that we have here, I think they'll be able to, all of you, sit down and make a good decision. And I would say that the committee is open and receptive to any and all individual county commissioners, anyone that would like to present a name. I think this committee would want to see that. Now, let me say in regard to lawsuits.
Sure.
I don't remember Leah trying very many lawsuits. Usually that was independent counsel. Am I right on that, Ben?
Just
in 9 out of 10 cases?
Because of the size of this county,
Exactly.
and not having a law department of 20 attorneys, we use a lot of outside counsel. I will say they don't submit anything to the court without us reading through it, approving their arguments, their reasoning.
But rarely taking the lead of being the lead counsel, and so that would not be, that's off the table as far
No, I
as this is
understand,
concerned.
yeah, I understand that, they're not gonna be going to court every day, I get that.
There is-
They would be representing our interests.
There is a bit of an indirect, though, that the law director under the Private Act does have the authority to choose who that private counsel would be. No one else could go in and tell whoever this law director is, you need to use this firm because maybe their brother-in-law works there, maybe not, who knows? That's up to whoever you choose as law director.
Yeah. And I guess that would be, I'll have to go back and review that act. I remember us before her bringing, maybe she was just doing it out of the goodness of her heart, but I remember her bringing to us counsel when we would go into executive session and we would vote up or down. Usually it was all the time agreeing with her on who she chose, but that's the best I remember.
So, answer your question, Commissioner Harrison, so I mean, you brought up a little bit about getting the law, so I've got a different opinion, so I mean, I'm more than happy to express my opinion on that, but I won't belabor the point, but just, I do different, we're set up a little bit differently. It's not like the executive of the federal government, which you gave as a comparison of, in comparison that to county government. We operate under pursuant of the Private Act. It's very clear, and even how the general statutes read. It says except as otherwise provided by general law or special or private act, and so there's an exception there, and so that's what we're operating under. But I think Commissioner High came up with a good compromise as far as trying to work with the county mayor's office on the selection and election process. And that's what we're here for. It's like whoever's names are forward, that's what we're going to discuss them. Whether the county mayor says, "Hey, I'd like this person to submit a resume," well, submit a resume, or like you have somebody that you know wants to submit a resume. Submit a resume. I mean, that's what we're here for. Is just to be, we're taking all resumes, and that's as a filtering selection process. And so, and that's really the merit of what we're discussing right now at this point. And so, just to kind of lay that down. So it's like, what is that to move this along to keep us on topic of the discussion of the selection process? So once these resumes are taken, or it's basically what do we want to do as a committee, kind of set forth as a way to kind of filter these or not filter these for the legislative committee, because that's what we're here to do. And so, did you have a question or you just, okay. So getting along with that is what is that basic ground rule when we receive whoever is making a recommendation to us to compile as a group? Do we want to, and we don't necessarily have to decide right now, but I mean, it'd be good to kind of maybe talk about it and get a good, clear ideas. Do we want to say, well, we'll take, I don't want to limit us to say, we'll take the top 7 or the top 3, but you know, we might get in a position where like we've got 20 resumes, but we're like, you know, really these are our top 3 to 5 or 7. And so when we can make the recommendation to pass those along to the county commission, you know, to the legislative committee, but obviously the legislative committee can always come back and just want to see all those resumes. So we're not authoritative on this issue with this committee in the bounds of its authority. But I think it'd be good just to establish like, hey, when these come in and we close this process, we do a special called meeting. We'll just meet and do a notice and then say, hey, we have these resumes that we're going to come discuss. Whether you guys have already talked to somebody in person or not, that's on your own initiative, but we come back together and discuss, hey, maybe it's a process. We've gone through these resumes on the first ad hoc meeting, and these are the ones that we like. We have our own pros and cons, and then maybe we decide who do we actually want to like call or interview as a group. I don't know. I'm trying to think through like that first, second level, third level of interview process of filtering. Or we might not want to do that at all. We might just want to pass everything on. So, I mean, it just trying to open ideas from the committee. That's what we're here for.
When is it closed? When is the?
I believe it was October 24th, but I mean, I was thinking extending that. The problem was they did not put a salary with it at the beginning of the range, and that was, you know, a lack of activity. But as soon as the salary range came in, it was started getting activity. But another problem was, like Indeed.com, I went in there and looked, and it's recommended salary $40,000 to $60,000 for this position, and I'm like, well, you don't know what people are seeing or not seeing, and so it really wasn't a fair assessment of what it is. And I think we don't even list benefits and the full gamut of what, you know, a person would get. So I know there may be questions with that, but that.
I mean, because my thing is the urgency of all this, you know, as confident as he is.
I want to interrupt the conversation, but you're asking for suggestions, so.
Would you finish?
No, he can go ahead. I mean, I'm just.
All right, Commissioner Wynn.
Sorry.
No, it's.
Yeah, no, if I'm interrupting, you just
No.
go.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I've served on several committees for hiring committees, and some were time sensitive, some weren't. And one thing that did work well was just the committee in itself came up with just a decision matrix. Here are the criteria that we're gonna look at, and you score those out. And you decide that before the first resume is looked at. And then that's very objective, right? So here's the skills, here's whatever it is you guys decide, here's how we'll score that. And you draw a line at the top score for how many ever, you know, and then that helps you cut down and cuts out a lot of the ambiguity or the, you know, well, I rate it different, or, you know, I hold this higher or whatever. But again, that's just a suggestion. It's worked well in committees I've served on whenever looking to hire somebody.
Question, what was the salary range that we put forward?
So originally, we didn't put a salary range because the commission did not give us one, and we did not want to. make an assumption that the commission wouldn't change the salary from what it has been.
Sure.
The chairman of, Mr. Mansfield here and Chairman Hyde, both contacted me about this, especially with Indeed that makes it their own estimations. If you don't give them one, I guess they thought law director was a paralegal of some sort maybe, if it said 45,000. So at that point, I was told to change it to 165 to 185, which does include the previous pay. So it's on towards the higher end of that, but it's included in that.
I didn't realize, Mark, that this was, had been set at a low rate, because I was very well aware that when the law office was first set up, the criteria for salary was based upon the salary of a general sessions judge.
Gotcha.
And so
Yeah.
we've got it back now where.
But there's no resolution and
No.
nothing in writing, that's just a
Right.
loose verbal
No,
agreement. And
I
so,
get
but
that, yeah, because I noticed it in the budget that was where the
being-
county judges was set at the higher end.
But
That-
being
So that
realistic
makes
to the
sense.
range, it's more appropriate to the range, and it's.
That
more
was how we
realistic.
hired Bill Wright, was at a general session judge.
Certainly cheaper than billable hours, that's for sure.
When was that change made?
Just last week. I just noticed and just contacted Cheryl and Ben and said, hey, can we add the range of something, because that's kind of like based on the budgetary range, so it's just like just last week.
Yeah, I don't disagree with it. I was just curious how long that's been out there, if that's spurred more
We've
interest.
gotten one application since that time, and that was last Thursday, Friday.
Was that the?
I think you told us Thursday afternoon, and we got it changed on Friday morning.
Okay, and there was pretty fast submission after that. So,
Personally, I think that those resumes, we probably, I think there's enough experience in here that we could look at those resumes, maybe filter some out. For example, the accountant, I mean, that's pretty easy to filter out
correct,
before it's forwarded on to legislative for
absolutely.
your all's purview.
absolutely.
That's my thinking.
I didn't think that one was qualified. I told Ramona to forward them on to you, even if
No,
it said
absolutely
that
not.
they didn't graduate high school. But
Yeah.
that's for this committee to decide.
No, that sounds fine. So, I mean, I'm fine with, if we wanted to come up with some kind of matrix of what, if we're looking at experience such as human resource experience or any litigation experience or contract law and, those types of things that are in the thing. But I mean, just making sure, I guess, one, checking against the actual job description and to make sure that their experience at least has something in the job description.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's just a simple way to filter it out.
Yeah.
What's always keeping our job description in mind. And then does this person qualify for that? And then I mean, most people probably will, but then what's the next level? I mean,
And this is such a broad job compared to most lawyers. Most lawyers pick a handful of things, and that's all they do, where we do everything you guys ask us to. So I would be, just be cognizant of that when you're looking, that you're probably not going to find someone that checks, 70% of the boxes. It'll be a really good day if you find someone who checks 60% of them, and that can learn the other 40%.
no, I don't have any doubt of that, for sure.
Like the Brown Trust.
So, so those are the basics. I think it's just at the basics what we're looking at, but right now we're just looking at two. So, I mean, right now, I don't know as far as next steps. Obviously, I don't think we need to, unless we want to meet before it closes and just tighten things up a little bit, because we can call an ad hoc anytime we want to. It's best to
This
call.
committee won't meet again unless we call another
We
meeting
can,
before the clock runs out on the 24th.
technically, no, as of right now. So, we can decide if we want to meet and just come up, if we wanted to come up with a little bit of a matrix or grid of what that looks like, or just wait till we see what we get and then we come together and meet. But I mean, obviously, the first steps is I think, collecting the resumes and discuss how we want to go from there. But
We won't, surely if we're gonna know a little something before the meeting, the regular commission meeting Monday night. If we hadn't received anything before then, we may need to do something different. And I don't know what that is, but to entice.
were in the earlier meeting discussing extending the
Correct.
Yeah.
time out another 30 days.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we want to draw a line in the sand and say if we have less than 5 applicants, we want to extend it? Is that what we're saying? Not that number necessarily.
I wasn't
but-
saying that.
No, that's what I'm, are we saying that's what you were talking about extending it? Is that what y'all were?
And,
The discussion.
and when's your sunset
For the
for the interim?
interim, it was 90 days, roughly end of November. It would have to be voted on again if it were to be continued. My suggestion with the line in the sand thing, I wouldn't make a number. I would just suggest having a meeting maybe on, I think the 23rd is Sunday, so not then, but maybe on the 24th, and then make a decision that day. Do we have enough qualified applicants to make a decision from this pool or not?
Mr. Brown has us.
I would like to make a recommendation that there be a questionnaire. Now, the matrix thing is good. You can take all those things, put it in a questionnaire, send it to that person, and that way they can fill it out, and then bring it back to, mail it back. Then you, can fill out that matrix that way, and then also have the personal interview.
It's a good idea.
That way it can qualify, once you do that, that way you at least have some kind of prior knowledge.
It's a good idea, I think in theory. The problem I'm talking to people is, in applications, some attorneys, based on how they answer questions, if they still have a job somewhere, and if they answer something and there could be a punitive recourse to their job because they've answered questions that we might have asked that are a lot more invasive than somebody working for somebody else, in a sense of, being targeted for your opinions. If we're asking specifically constitutional type issues or things that are sensitive, I'm sensitive that was brought to my attention. I want to ask, trust me, I've got some, nuclear questions, more than with cannons loaded and ready to shoot off the deck. But I understand some sensitivity to that process as well.
The reasoning behind that is it gives them time to couch their answers. And then you can, again, personally interview them. But here again, thinking off the top of their head, they might not answer properly.
I've got a list of questions that I would want to ask somebody, and I kind of just tested it out on somebody, and they were like, well, you might want to think about it. It just because of the name, the sensitivity. Does it make sense what I'm saying? It could put somebody in jeopardy even getting fired from their job if they answer candidly, and they'll end up getting the position, but yet they're in a place where nobody knows their political beliefs, or because hey, regardless of what you want to say or not, this is a partisan position. I mean, because it's based, we're a Republican county, and so we're going to be looking for people who have constitutionally minded Republican values. But that's just our bent, and it's just a bias. And so there's somebody might be in a position, they might be conservative, but they're working in a very liberal organization, and they might get fired, or vice versa. So I just throwing caution to that. It's something it's one of those. Trust me, I want to level some questions, but I'm like, biting my finger to not to, or trying to do it in a more respectful way, because I'm afraid you just might not have anybody answer the question. Depends. So
This being an organizational meeting, Jeremy, I think that we ought to not linger here very long.
I'm fine with that.
And I think what we ought to do is you should draw up some major questions that the committee should be considering, such as how, when, where you will do things. Let them be thinking about what they how they would like to answer each one of the things that you have out there that we need to start addressing. I'm going to back out of this committee. I may be here watching you all, but unless you say, hey, go get me a glass of water, I'm not going to say or do anything. But I would send them just several questions or statements of things that they should be thinking about, so that the next meeting, when you call it, you will have a good idea of what you need to do.
Let's go and talk about the next meeting. I think Chairman Rogers of Emergency Service, did you have a special call on the 24th?
At 6, yes, sir.
At 6 p.m. And what we could do, on that night, we could do a special call like at 5 PM if you guys wanted to meet on that Monday, the 24th. And, I like the idea of, and I'll send an email out to you guys of maybe some things we can think about for that meeting, but I do like, I like the idea of questions. I think it gives it merit, but then we can discuss it and then decide what, maybe a list of questions we want to ask of each candidate to kind of form maybe that matrix. I think that'd be a good idea. I like kind of a combination of both those suggestions, but that way you guys we can kind of filter each other on those questions and decide what we think is appropriate or not to ask somebody as a committee, and kind of maybe try to kind of a consensus on that. Does it make sense what I was talking about, just being sensitive to people asking questions? I mean, but so I'll make a motion. Let's move forward with objectives of our next meeting on the 24th. I'll submit a list of questions to you guys, or you guys can email me, or we can just email the committee just a PDF of our questions, and we can come back together. Just gives us time to read over them, and then we can bring that back on the 24th.
And I'll say the pre-writing the questions is a great practice for protecting ourselves, because I've been in a interview process here before where the candidate mentioned which high school they went to, and someone else goes, "Oh, I went to that same high school. We look about the same age. What year did you go?" And when that candidate wasn't selected, they emailed us while copying a lawyer on there saying, "Well, when he asked what year I went to graduate high school, that was asking how old I was, and it was an age discrimination thing." Luckily, I was able to point out to him, "Well, you put what year you were in the high school band in your resume, so I think you already told us." But those off the fly or off the cuff questions can really get you in trouble if someone says, "Oh, you were hinting at, do I have kids that are going to keep me home when they're sick? Do any of those things that someone might claim?" If we pre-write the questions, you can screen out those sort of issues before they arise.
So maybe a little homework, come up with a list of questions and email them to me, and I can distribute it out to the committee for the 24th. And that what can be one of the things we discuss is kind of like creating a list of questions so that when we close this process, if it closes on the 24th, the commission chooses to extend it another 30 days, the 24th we can establish, hey, this is what we're going to do. And then after that meeting, we'll establish when we're going to meet again to go through these. And sound fair enough? Any questions?
Can I make one suggestion? Ben knows more about what the job entails, and so I think he's pretty central to areas of focus. So maybe where questions should lie or more questions should be directed. I would just make that suggestion. Is just let Ben or allow Ben the opportunity to weigh in on I guess areas to probe more on or maybe focus more on as opposed to other areas. Maybe more contract review, maybe the majority of what the office actually does versus litigation. So just a suggestion.
I'll give this committee whatever input they want. I'll let you know right now I am not putting in an application. So don't have to worry about me trying to feed you which way to push towards it, and then you're going to get an application from me. I'm not, hand to God, you're not getting one from me. So if you want me to help in these ways, I work for the commission. Just let me know what you want me to do.
So I'll make a motion. I'd like to submit questions like originally stated for the next meeting. And I mean, obviously we can filter it as a group and obviously Ben throw some flags to us, whatever. I mean, something worded, but that's, I want to have a little bit more. And obviously anything that comes, I'll send it to you as well. So then just send everything to me and distribute it back out to everybody. And so we can all read what these questions are and be thinking about it and formulate it on and be prepared when we come to the next meeting. And so for how we want to form this process, I think it would be a good way to start. So any other questions? Any other discussion? So I made a motion to meet on the 24th, and I'm going to, as well as you guys submit some questions, and we can kind of build a little format from there, from these questions as a basic departure to filter these resumes from. Got a second?
I second at 5 p.m., correct.
Second at 5 p.m. and submit questions. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One more motion.
Adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Commissioner Bergeron. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.